Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Trader Joe's. Okay, I'm Sam Kirkland, and it is a great honor to be serving as your worship associate this morning. Welcome to our worship. The Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Phoenix strives to be a spiritual community for our time, focused on diverse theological perspectives, radical inclusion, and knowing that issues of justice and equity shape everything we do, with a special awareness for those who have been historically marginalized. We welcome all of every race, class, ethnicity, immigration status, sexual orientation, gender identity, religious background, mental and physical ability and disability. We welcome your whole self, your family, into our worship as we build a community of kindness, caring, courage, and hope. I invite you to grab a chalice and a candle, or a candle from your home, as we prepare to light our chalice. Be quiet, mayhem. Okay. Quiet, mayhem. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to share our strength in fellowship, thus do we covenant. Our worship leader this morning is Kimberley Debus. Reverend Kimberley is a community minister based in upstate New York, inspiring an artful and art-filled faith. She consults with congregations and religious professionals and provides sabbatical ministry support throughout the denomination. She has previously served at the Church of the Larger Fellowship, as well as congregations on Long Island and Key West. Join me in welcoming Reverend Debus for our opening words.
Let's take a deep breath as we hear these words from Gretchen Haley. Let's not go building new walls around our hearts. We already have enough that keeps us from each other, enough that keeps us from ourselves and the knowing of all that we have done, all that has been done to us and for us, the losses we sustained, the love we avoided, the life we held too tight. For this hour, we practice showing up with a willingness to see, to be seen, to remember ourselves whole and still becoming better, to believe it is okay to not be okay, that we are loved even when we are unlovable, that we belong even when the ground comes out from under us. To be for each other a surprising generosity, a sudden sweetness, a sign of hope, the start of a new day. Together we can be this brave. Come, let us worship together.
Allow me to introduce our worship team. Our Director of Children's Ministry is Katie Resendez. Our pianist is Mary Coda. Our music director is Benji Messer. Behind the scenes, Justin Walgren is covering audio visual, and we have a new moderator this week, Heidi Singer, managing the chat. Welcome to the team, Heidi. Our chat is open. You can chat with everyone or just to our panelists running the service. Please feel free to say hi to everyone. As always, we invite you to check in to UUCP on social media with the hashtag UUAnywhere. I have a few announcements about the life of our community. All of these announcements can be found in our weekly online newsletter, Compass, which you can sign up for at our website, phoenixuu.org. We have wonderful news. Anthony Johnson, our previous Director of Congregational Life, is ready to be ordained. In the Unitarian Universalist denomination, the privilege and right of ordaining ministers rest with congregations. So, Anthony has asked UUCP for the great honor to ordain him jointly with the Humboldt UU congregation. His ordination is planned for Saturday, October the 24th. Ordination requires a congregational vote, which we'll be having immediately following our water communion worship on September the 13th. And speaking of water communion, look for directions next week on how we will be having a virtual water communion. Sounds exciting. Unfortunately, we still cannot be together, but that doesn't mean that our waters can't mingle together. In the weeks before the service, we will have a bunch of locations where you can share your family's water and take a picture or video of you doing so. We will then bring all of the waters together, representing the connections we all share. Look for more details coming this week. And finally, we are collecting our offering virtually. Just like our service, our congregation is entirely self-governed by the democratic process. One of the privileges of our free church tradition is to provide all of the financial support for our many ministries from among ourselves. Generosity, therefore, is one of the spiritual values we recognize as central to our personal and our institutional well-being. We are so grateful for your financial support. You can text UUCP at 73256. You can donate through the website, or you can send an old-fashioned check through the old-fashioned United States postal system. Shout out to the postal system. For all that you give to our congregation, we are so grateful.
Thanks, Sam. So, hello, everyone. Reverend Debus will be speaking today about how we need humor and joy during tough times. And I've been trying, I know you don't all have hymnals at home, so I've been fooling around with choosing songs that maybe we wouldn't sing when we were at church, but we can sing here together. So I was looking for something about needing to laugh a little and cry a little. So let's sing The Glory of Love, which was a big hit in '36 and has been known since. It goes like this. The lyrics will be in the chat. You've got to give a little, take a little, and let your poor heart break a little. That's the story of, that's the glory of love. And you gotta laugh. You gotta laugh a little, cry a little, and let the clouds roll by a little. That's the story of, that's the glory of love. As long as there's a few of us, we've got the world and all its charms. And when the world is through with us, we've got each other's arms. You've got to win a little, lose a little, always have the blues a little. And that's the story of, that's the glory of love. Let's do the bridge again. As long as there's a few of us, we've got the world and all its charms. And when the world is through with us, we've got each other's arms. You've got to win a little, lose a little. Always have the blues a little. And that's the story that's the glory of love. Thanks, everyone.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Katie Resendez, and I'm the Director of Children's Ministry here at UUC Phoenix. I'm really tempted to say, welcome, Mayhem. Did you all hear the meowing beforehand? That was Mr. Sam's cat named Mayhem, which I think we should welcome into our lives to some extent, especially when we have a community to help us through them. Mayhem. Mayhem and laughter go pretty well together. Today, I'm going to tell you a story that I promise is about laughter, and I promise it's about comedy, but it's going to start out a little bit serious, a little bit dark, and end a little bit gruesome. But it's a funny horror story. One of our sources as Unitarian Universalists of our beliefs is the prophetic words of wise people. And we talk about sometimes the same people over and over again, and that's good because we really do value them. Martin Luther King, Ralph Waldo Emerson, those kind of folks. But we work to expand who we think about as prophetic individuals. And a lot of times that means thinking about people who aren't white, people who don't fit the gender binary, people who don't live the lives that we expect or we see as normal. Today, I'm going to challenge you to go even further in who you are willing to think about as a prophetic individual. I'm going to ask you to consider a Catholic saint. Take a breath. We can do this. Saint Lawrence, or San Lorenzo, as I know him, was one of the 7 deacons of Rome under Pope Sixtus. I always remember that because he was one of the 7 deacons under Sixtus, and it was actually Pope Sixtus II. Words can be fun. 7, Sixtus, second. Anyway. He was a deacon, and it was a time when the Catholic Church didn't have a lot of power, but they did have a lot of wealth, and being Catholic was not considered a good thing. San Lorenzo was made into a deacon when he was very young, and he wasn't taken very seriously for lots of reasons. He tended to be kind of backtalky. He questioned authority a lot. He challenged the people around him, and not just the Pope that he worked under, but also the state government. Sound familiar? So through the course of his career, he did a lot of things that got him some recognition, things that people appreciated and things that people thought were wacky. And as he got older, Pope Sixtus died and laws changed. And one of the things that happened was that everyone who was Catholic and all of the Catholic institutions were told to turn over all of their riches and wealth to the government, to the state. And because San Lorenzo was the last of the 7 deacons remaining, it was up to him. He was told that he had to give over all of the wealth and all of the riches that the church held to the government. So he said, okay, I will do that, but please, 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 give me 3 days to gather it all together. So, over the course of those 3 days, he took all of the gold, all of the treasures, all of the shiny, beautiful things, and gave them to poor individuals, folks who were suffering, people who were sick, and gave them those treasures. On the 3rd day, when he was called to the governor's office and was told to present all of these treasures, he brought with him an entire group of people living in poverty. And he said, there is nothing more true than the fact that these people, the people who have the least and are suffering the most, are the true treasures of the church. They are our people, which is a pretty amazing thing to say. Here's where the story gets bad. It being the time it was and Catholicism being looked down on the way it was. Having said that, and having done that, and having denied his government leaders their wealth, he was sentenced to death. It's fairly common. And as a saint, we often tell stories about, especially Catholic saints, around their martyrdoms and their death and how important it was. But I think that it's really important and really good to remember the miracles and the things that they did during their lives. And for San Lorenzo, being willing to stand up and say that poor people have value and that people have value across the board is amazing and was revolutionary at the time, and sounds a heck of a lot like our first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Okay, ready for where this saint story gets both gruesome and funny? For his death, he kept taunting the leaders of the state. He kept questioning things they said. And so his execution was meant to be particularly bad. They took a giant metal, it's called a gridiron. It's like a giant grill, and laid it on top of a bed of coals. And that's how he was meant to die. It was essentially like cooking a person. It was horrible. It was a torturous way. People sometimes feel that the best way to punish someone is to torture them. But you see, San Lorenzo knew that his faith and his spirit and what he had done was all righteous. And he strongly, strongly held his beliefs, especially his belief that everyone is valuable. So when they put him on the gridiron and it was heated up and he was burning, he said, and this is documented, this is historically documented what he actually said. He looked to his executioner after a while and said, "Flip me over, I'm done on this side." And then cackled and cackled and cackled. Can you imagine at the moment of your worst torture, in your most danger, having the wit and the wisdom to turn to your oppressor and laugh in their face? How powerful is that? How amazing is that? And what, not just a tool, but a weapon against oppression, laughter can be. And so, in the spirit of that humor, for those of you that don't know, Catholic saints are often the patrons of things. What is the thing that you pray to, or the saint that helps you through a specific thing or a specific type of person? And in honor of San Lorenzo, he is the patron saint of chefs and cooks, because he died on the gridiron. Also because of the gridiron, professional football, and comedians. Please remember that laughter has so much power, not just to make us feel better, but to change the world. And that you are so powerful and so very, very loved.
Now is the time where we share our joys and sorrows of our community. Being together, it's good to share, to support each other, and to connect. Please write any joys or sorrows or what you want our community to know about. Please put your name at the beginning so I know who it is. If you want it to be private only to me and not to be shared, please put the word private at the beginning and send it to just the panelists so that I can hold it in my heart. While you are entering your joys and sorrows, let us share some from our greater community. Once again, we mourn the shooting of a Black man by the police. This time in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Jacob Blake was unarmed, had his back turned, and was getting into the car where his 3 children were and was shot in the back by the police 7 times. I understand at this point he's paralyzed from the waist down. We are horrified. We are appalled, but we cannot be surprised. The killing of Breonna Taylor is still not addressed in Louisville, Kentucky, and we know there are countless others who were not recorded so clearly. We will continue to speak out, to protest, to be angry, and to fight for justice. In the meantime, we are sending our healing energy to Mr. Blake and his family. We also need to name the natural disasters that are happening with the wildfires in California and Arizona, as well as wildfires in Hurricane Laura in Louisiana and Texas. We must be clear that the abundance of these are a result of global climate change and human action. We also must note that they disproportionately affect those who are already most marginalized. The towns in Louisiana and Texas were already disadvantaged, much of it at the hands of the oil industry, which is partly to blame for the climate crisis in the first place. We pray for those who have died, those who are displaced, and those who are suffering even more during this very tumultuous time. I'd also like to extend my sorrow to my family. We lost Doris, Auntie D. Chenault Hood this week. She was a wonderful godmother to my wife, Michelle, a beloved lifelong friend of Jane Hill Morgan, and just a great lady. I'd also like to take this time to wish myself a happy birthday. I turned 64 on Wednesday. And now I'd like to take a look at the joys and sorrows of our community. Let's see, we have a sorrow from Amy and Steve Meskel. 2 of our friends have been working as COVID nurses and they have tested positive. They have not had to be hospitalized yet, holding all COVID patients, medical staff, and those who are recovering from the coronavirus in our hearts. Yes, indeed, yes. Donna Talbot is thankful for the rain. And Lackey, I'm happy that cataract surgery went well. I can see. I just found out that Chadwick, this is from Carol Lothar, just found out that Chadwick Boseman died. She had seen all of his movies and he portrayed some of the most important Black heroes in our history. He certainly did. That's something I hadn't really thought that much of. Lynn Joy rescued 6 poodles from a woman who was abusing them. Long story, the dogs are now safe with a poodle breeder. Cool. Jen, please pray for me as I struggle through depression. On a lighter note, Michelle is wishing me a happy birthday. Thanks, babe. And she also made a note about her godmother who died. Yes. Welcome to Ben B. Glad you're here. Hope to meet you at the coffee hour afterwards. And that's from Sue. Carolyn Allenby, my daughter and her husband just completed the 500-mile backpack of the Colorado Trail and are on their way to Phoenix to spend a week working from our home before returning to New York City. 500 miles, that's incredible. Joy from the Miskels, it rained, yes. Sarah Montgomery has this: the Montgomery family has finally moved into our new home. We're calling her Nicole. She's a mess, like the rest of us, but I love her so much. I like the idea that you're giving your home a name. That's good. Ben is happy to be here and feeling the joy and connectivity of us all. Thank you, Sue. A lot of people wish me a happy birthday. It's almost going to make me tear up. Hi, this is Lisa. I just wanted to say hi. This is my first time. I have not been to church in a while, but I grew up in UU Church in Framingham, Massachusetts. I look forward to connecting with folks soon. Well, stick around because we have a virtual coffee hour that you'll be able to really get in with people and talk to them and get to know some folks. Here's a joy from Beth Graham. We had a great time on our Idaho hiking vacation. We're back and rejuvenated. Yes, here's to rejuvenation. Heidi would like to welcome Lisa and Ben, I think. Yes. And as always, there are those joys and sorrows that we hold in our heart and that are too personal or too private to share. And we would like to give honor to those at this time as well.
Let us breathe into a spirit of prayer and meditation. Loving God, Spirit of life, that which holds all, we rest here in this sacred community, our thoughts full and our need great, each heart aching, each mind racing, each soul crying out. Great loving mystery, hold us and all whom we love. Keep our despair from becoming meanness. Keep our sorrow from collapsing into self-pity. Keep our hearts soft enough to keep breaking. Keep our anger turned toward justice. Remind us that all of this, every bit of it, is for love. Keep us fiercely kind. As we breathe in peace, let us remember that we say these prayers and hold these thoughts in the name of all that is holy and in all the holy names that have ever been uttered and those that have not even been imagined. And so we say, Shalom, blessed be, Ashe, and Amen.
reflection today is entitled NBJD, Not Better, Just Different. Recently, I watched our UUCP's video choir performance of Climbing High Mountains, which I proudly participated in. As I marveled at Donna Featherston's lead vocals and got to take in her expressions of love and comfort, it came to me suddenly that while I desperately missed the community of our beloved choir singing, meeting, as well as snacking together, after watching it a time or two and dissecting my own performance on or about the third or fourth viewing, I could relax and capture the spirit and joy of my choir mates as I let go of my inner critic and embrace the comfort and message found in the lyrics. There was something about getting to see all our faces in that Brady Bunch format that we did not get to share while singing out to the congregation from our choir loft. Additionally, I got to see the faces of choir mates new and old from near and far. I reveled in grace and gratitude at the dedication and hard work that Benji Messer puts into getting us set up to do our very best work. I could appreciate and thank the folks who work in post-production who must listen and view it a lot more than I ever would hope to. I coined the acronym NBJD, Not Better, Just Different, to describe this experience. A lot of what I'm learning around this harrowing, challenging, sorrow-filled time of this collective moment can be captured in that acronym.
Our reading today is a piece by Amy Petrie Shaw. I am having a quiet Saturday morning. Well, that was my plan. In reality, I am having a Saturday morning with a moment of quiet. The moments which preceded it, not so much. I woke up to the sound of relative silence. Ever keen to roller skate where angels fear to tread, I removed a snoring cat named Nike from my head, detangled another cat, Dippy, from her brown blankie, where she was happily using my second toe as a teething toy, and I got dressed. This took approximately eternity minutes. It would have gone faster, but dressing slows when there is a Laurel and Hardy routine happening in your bathroom. I stand at the sink and begin to put my contacts in. Nike jumps into the sink. Dippy, never one to be left out, jumps onto the toilet tank. Nike is afraid of Dippy. To avoid her, he jumps into the wastebasket. Dippy, wanting to get the drop on him, jumps over to the sink. This is like card shuffling, only with a much higher level of neurosis. I turn to get my shirt, only to find that Nike has crawled through the body and into the sleeve and is peering out the cuff. He looks like a vampire Russian sausage with an overbite. I attempt to shake him out as Dippy shoves her head in the other sleeve and tries to wiggle in. From the cuff end, she is stuck. He is petrified. Stare at Oxford button-down, right sleeve filled with fear-frozen, saucer-eyed black Muppet, left sleeve filled with fangs and psychosis. Left sleeve begins to howl. Contemplate wearing shirt like a cape. Contemplate high fashion potential of cat-filled couture. Contemplate flawed life choices. Left sleeve attempts to crawl away, dragging body and right sleeve behind it. It is still howling. Right sleeve has closed his eyes and is pretending to be dead. Step over shirt. get fresh shirt from closet. Add steel-toed boots. Stand on shirt body. Shake black Muppet loose from right sleeve. Seize left sleeve and begin to squeeze it like a tube of toothpaste. Screaming furry lump of evil extruded onto boot. Pick up former left sleeve dweller by scruff of her neck and remove her teeth from steel toe. Toss her out of the bathroom. Brush hair to the dulcet sounds of a cat fight erupting on the bed. Wander down to the kitchen. I finally sit down to sip blissfully at my cup. Our once feral cat Marshy is cuddled on my lap. Nike is at my right hand slurping the gravy from his cat food. And then there is Dippy, who leaps onto the table in the middle of my pill bottles and knocks my fur jacket onto the floor as she thunders past my chair. Remember, Marshy is partially a wild cat who hears what sounds like a rattlesnake rattle as pill bottles drop to the floor. And then a large fur thing moves past her like a bear preparing to leap. Her nerves are good. They are not that good. Every hair on her body extends straight out, making her look like an electrocuted porcupine. She goes straight upwards in a definitive and no screwing around sort of fashion. There is a fun-filled popcorn moment as cats explode outward in all directions. Dippy launches herself into space using the marker rack as a diving board. Nike does a half gainer off the right end of the table and bounces off the sliding door and disappears into the living room. Marshy uses my shoulder to leap over Nike, hits the door a moment after he did, and screams that the sky is not, if falling, certainly is filled with snakes and bears. I let Marshy out. I pick up Nike's overturned bowl. I wipe up his cat food. I pick up my fur jacket. I pat the lump of rug that Dippy is hiding under. The rug bites me and I stop to wash my hand. And then I hear it. Silence. Not one living thing anywhere near my computer. I sit down with my coffee and put on my headphones. Saturday, the most peaceful day of the week.
This is the UU Talking Blue. Want to get in trouble, I'll tell you how to do it. Just join the UUs and you're into it. I was rolling along in life, thought I'd go to heaven, till I run into this here UU religion. Now I ain't sure where I'm going. The more I think about it, I probably wasn't going to get there anyway. Too many requirements. But if I end up where some of these UU folks are, having auctions and marching in protests and maybe drinking a little wine and such, well, that'd be all right. Anyway, let me tell you how it all came about. Woke up one Sunday, wasn't nothing doing, so I looked in the paper to see what was brewing. Saw this place that they call UU, so I come on down to see what they do. Well, I've been coming here for a couple of years now. Still ain't figured out what to do. But the folks here seem to disagree on that anyway. I think there's something about a quest. Maybe I'll just hang around and disagree with them. I can do that. And I can quest with the best. Well, I liked their approach in the short sermons too, and I liked what they served in the Johnson room. They said if I joined, there'd be plenty to do, so I signed my name and I paid up my dues. Well, within a week, I was on the Welcoming Committee, the Unicare Committee, the Social Action Committee, the Sunday Services Committee, the Immigration Committee, the Renovation Committee, the Finance Committee, the Safe Congregation Committee, and the Diversity Committee. I was a religious education teacher, a member of the Black Lives Matter and the spirituality workshops, a hiking group and the green team. Plus, I was in 3 small groups and 2 circle dinners. Imagine that. Pretty cool for a church. I had so much to do, I didn't have time to go home. So I gave up my apartment. I just stay in the church now, eat potlucks and sleep in the nursery. Catholics and Baptists and Lutherans and Jews, there's Buddhists and Muslims and also Hindus. There's working folks and snowbirds from Kalamazoo, and thanks to all the protests and marches and all, there's ex-cons too. That's diversity. Well, they blessed the pets in church one day. They washed my hamster's sins away. There was dogs, there was cats, and a pet cockatoo. You never know what these folks are going to do, sir. But I guess all them pets was members too. I know they serve kibbles in the Johnson room. Gluten-free. Very inclusive. Last week I got a call from my old friend Ray. He's a UU from back New York way. Said he reads about Arizona every day. Said it's hard to believe what the papers say. He says, I read they passed a law out there you can carry guns all over the place, in the bars. Is that true? I says, yep. And they want to cut up 250,000 people off the health insurance system. That's so? I says, yep. And meanwhile, they're going to lower all the corporation taxes by a bunch of millions. Is that true? I says, yep. They wanted to arrest those folks that go out there and give water to the undocumented people in the desert. Is that true? I says, yep. And they wanted to take all the public school money and give it to the charter schools. Is that true? Yep, they tried that. And he says, that's a scary place. He says, you better get away. I says, nope, somebody got to stay here and hold the line. I said, that's what these UU folks and the Red for Ed folks and some of the others here are doing, and I'm going to step by them. Well, I got to admire these UU folks. They work hard for the things that matter most. Social justice and human dignity and the habitat. Sure ain't nothing wrong with that. They say around here this is a welcoming congregation, and they mean it. All God's children are welcome. I think Jesus said that. And Muhammad and some others. Well, maybe some of our Arizona leaders ought to learn to say it too. I said that. Want to get in trouble? I'll tell you how to do it. Just join the UUs and you're into it. You might not get to heaven when it's all done, but who knows, wherever you go, you might have a lot more fun. Or not. But who wants to hang around playing golden harps and singing old hymns anyway? That's the thing about a liberal religion. Maybe you'll just go to a big potluck dinner in the sky. Maybe God will be having workshops. Or maybe you'll just come back and sprout up as a bunch of green beans and carrots and peas. But you can be sure in that garden, everyone will be welcome. No profiling in that garden.
Humor's a funny thing, isn't it? All right, sorry. I couldn't resist. But consider what has happened since our worship services started. You probably came in a bit tired, maybe a little quietly frustrated by yet another week of virtual worship, of watching the numbers of the pandemic rise. You may have had a decent week or a terrible one, and maybe both at once. And then we breathed together, and we sang together. And you heard some good words, some beautiful music. And then I told you a funny story about finding peace in the midst of chaos. And you laughed. I laughed. And something shifted. That's the power of humor, to shift our energy and change our perspective. Now, I hear you saying you're preaching about humor now in the midst of a pandemic with no end in sight? And that's on top of all the other suffering and injustice that continues in our nation. Suffering and injustice that doesn't care that there's a virus trying to kill us. Oh, and murder hornets and nunchuck-wielding bears and hurricanes that don't care either. Racism, homophobia, income inequality, misogyny, ableism, gun violence, none of it goes away because we're in the middle of a pandemic. And in fact, the pandemic is only amplifying those concerns. So how do we possibly talk about humor? And yet here I am, doing exactly that. Because what I know is that if we deny ourselves any kind of enjoyment before all the world is affirmed and clothed and peaceful and free, we will spend generations in a dark and soulless world, and we might not survive at all. Right now, we need the medicine that laughter provides. We need all the joy we can get. Dr. Kimberley Norris, an authority on confinement and reintegration at the University of Tasmania, says that we've moved from the first period of isolation, a time of panic buying and confusion, to the second period, the honeymoon, where it felt novel and different as we learned new technology and enjoyed working in our pajamas. But now we are in the very long third period, a time of loneliness, of frustration, of despair, a time of hollow-eyed stares, odd fixations, and brooding resentment. According to studies of how long people can survive in space, they find that moods drop about 2/3 of the way through a mission. And when there's unclarity about when such a time of isolation will end, it is even harder. Because while there seem to be glimmers of hope, in our case, the promise of maybe a flattening curve, the uncertainty of how long this will actually last means that this third period can last a really long time. Our moods are suffering. Our relationships are suffering. We're getting snippy and intolerant. We're looking into the future and wondering when and if we can celebrate birthdays and holidays and go on real vacations and attend concerts and sing together and return to worship services with one another. And those long looks at the calendar bring a sense of futility. We are in what's called a liminal space, an in-between time. And we're not good in these kinds of spaces, not for very long anyway. We need a shift. We need something unexpected. Some of you may have seen Steel Magnolias, either on the stage or in film. The story is of all right. Some of you may have seen Steel Magnolias, either on stage or the film. The story is of a group of Southern women finding strength in themselves and through their friendship with one another. The main storyline is that of Malin and her daughter Shelby, whose diabetes is causing significant complications as she gets married, has a child, and eventually needs a kidney transplant. In the end, Shelby dies too young, and Malin is quietly, reservedly angry. Angry at losing a child, angry at death, angry at God. But amongst these friends in the cemetery, Malin finally has space to drop her Southern propriety and let her anger out. She rants and raves. She says, I want to hit somebody so they can feel as bad as I do. I just want to hit somebody. Clarie offers their friend Weezer as a target. Hit Weezer! Hit her! Go ahead, Malin, slap her! They all pause for a moment, but it shakes them, and then they begin laughing hard. That moment changed the energy, changed their perspective, and changes us too. And the truth is, our taste for humor and the kinds of humor we enjoy is cultural, but our human brains are all wired for humor. In his book, The Prehistory of the Mind, anthropologist Stephen Miffin talks about the development of the human brain as a process of cognitive fluidity. He theorizes that the primate mind has evolved into the modern mind by combining different, distinct ways of processing knowledge and using tools to create a modern civilization. Where once our archaic human ancestors had separate parts of our brain dedicated to technology and society and nature, Miffin suggests that those regions begin to connect and overlap, and thus we begin to arrive at original thoughts that weren't about food and shelter and danger, but are often highly creative and rely on metaphor and analogy. We often use metaphor in our congregations as ways to communicate various understandings of the divine. We say things like Spirit of Life, Infinite All, Divine One, That which holds all, Mystery, God. And without the cognitive fluidity of our minds, we wouldn't have metaphor, no less a sense of something that is tangible and maybe beyond us. It's that same fluidity that allows humor to exist. So let's look at a simple joke. Okay. A kangaroo walks into a bar and sits down. The bartender comes over. What can I get you? I'll have a whiskey sour. The bartender fixes the drink, sets it in front of the kangaroo, and says, that'll be $12.50. The kangaroo pulls a 20 from his pocket, lays it on the bar. He picks up his drink and takes a long, quiet sip. Gee, says the bartender, we don't get many kangaroos in here. Kangaroo replies, well, at these prices, it's no wonder. So what happened here? First, I hope you laughed. I made a pause, right? But what's happened is first we're taking a societal situation, somebody walking into a bar, and added an unusual thing from the natural world, namely a kangaroo. Already we've engaged with some fluidity, and we're willing to apply human traits to this kangaroo, namely speech and the ability to sit on a bar stool. Second, during the center of the joke, our brains accept this as the new normal. And then the joke challenges that new normal. The setup, we don't get many kangaroos at this bar, is by its very nature leads us to think, oh right, a kangaroo at a bar may not be normal. And then the punchline flips the entire thing on its head, gives us an unexpected connection, and sparks a reaction. In our case, laughter. I hope. Yeah, the joke is funny because our brains love the unexpected. Even more, our emotions love the unexpected. Just as Malin and her friends found relief in the unexpected hitter moment in the cemetery, we often find a sense of relief when we laugh. We need that relief. Recently, I had a couple of hard days dealing with this long third period of the pandemic. I didn't know what to do with myself. I was at 6s and 7s. I was squirrely. I was unsettled. I finally sat down and started flipping through YouTube to see if anything caught my eye, which it did. I remembered that there is a British television show I like called Taskmaster. Now, if you're not familiar with Taskmaster, and you may not be, It is best described by The Guardian as a show where comedians are filmed playing stupid games, then gather on stage to argue over the footage. It is ridiculous, and it's silly, and it shouldn't work, and it's now in its 10th season with no sign of stopping. So I put on an episode, feeling anxious and sad and not in the mood for anything really, but, well, what the heck, English accents and no dramatic storyline seemed about as much as I could handle at the moment. And soon, while watching 5 comedians try to pop a bubble with their nose, I burst out laughing. The guffaws kept coming too, and the next task invited them to create the biggest splash they could. Ridiculous, stupid tasks, hysterical banter. Result? I was utterly surprised by the unexpected joy. It was balm for my troubled soul. And whether it's a murmuring laugh or a sudden guffaw, an internal giggle, all of these are a response to humor's power to break into our brain's ability and help us find joy in the unexpected. This matters. For millennia, we have used, loved, and frankly needed humor to change our perspective, to lift the lid off of what might be hidden under the commonplace, to challenge our expectations of how we think the world works, and excite us about what the world could be. Humor is the medicine we need to lift our spirits and make what's next possible. Now, I'm not saying we need to laugh and feel joyful all the time. Sadness, anger, fear, anxiety, all of these are natural emotions. They're desirable, reasonable responses to all that we are experiencing and witnessing. When we feel fully, we know we are alive, emotionally alive. And joy should not be left out of that mix. And so right now we should be making the conditions favorable. Remembering that even in the midst of a pandemic and a grueling election cycle, on top of the violence that continues on our streets, and on top of years of distress over the hell that is in the world, we need the release and perspective that humor provides so we can love the hell out. We need the propelling nature of joy to keep us going, to help us see those glimmers of hope. So go find a silly show, watch some stand-up, play a funny game, watch cat videos, engage in silly walks and dress-up days. Extend your gratitude practice to the sublime and the ridiculous. Make dad jokes. Make the conditions so favorable that even if you don't feel joy, even if you don't think anything's funny really, maybe still a bit of laughter will sneak in. It's easy to sink into frustration and despair, and more so than ever, we must at least invite the joy and laughter in, because the alternative is unbearable. So go, laugh, find joy. Amen.
Well, I have a feeling. Reverend Debus said to me, you know, the only song I definitely want is "Turn the World Around" after my sermon, and I have feelings just because she really enjoys it. So I hope you enjoy it too. "Turn the World Around" by Harry Belafonte. The lyrics are in the chat. We come from the fire, living in the fire. Go back to the fire, turn the world around. We come from the fire, living in the fire. Go back to the fire, turn the water. We come from the water, living in the water. Go back to the water, turn the world around again. We come from the water, living in the water. Go back to the water, turn the world around. mountain. We come from the mountain, living on the mountain. Go back to the mountain, turn the world around. Said we come from the mountain, living on the mountain. Go back to the mountain, turn the world around. Whoa, so is life. Ah, so is life. Whoa, so is life. Ah, so is life. Do you know who I am? Do I know who you are? See we one another clearly. Do we know who we are? Do you know who I am? Do I know who you are? See we one another clearly. Do we know who we are? Do you know who I am? Do I know who you are? See we one another clearly. Do we know who we are? Whoa, so is life, wa. So is life. Whoa, so is life, wa. So is life. Water make the river, river wash the mountain. Fire make the sunlight turn the world around. Heart is of the river, body is the mountain. Spirit is the sunlight, turn the world around. We are of the spirit, truly of the spirit. Only can the spirit turn the world around. I said we are of the spirit, truly of the spirit. Only can the spirit turn the world around. Whoa, so is life, wa. So is life. Whoa, so is life, wa. So is life. Whoa, so is life, wa. So is life. Whoa, so is life, wa. So is life.
Whoa, abatiwa, so is life. Abatiwa, so is life. Oh. Before Reverend Kimberly's closing words, we'd like to invite you to coffee hour after the service, where we will meet in large group and then smaller groups. The rooms are posted in the chat and will be on the final slide. Visitors, we hope and look forward to you joining us. We hope you will, and we look forward to it. We are a very friendly bunch. There is also a coffee hour just for our kiddos and their family.
Molly Fumia reminds us that to be joyful in the universe is a brave and reckless act. The courage for joy springs not from the certainty of human experience, but the surprise, our astonishment at being loved, our bold willingness to love in return. These wonders promise the possibility of joyfulness, no matter how often and how harshly love seems to be lost. Therefore, despite the world's sorrows, give thanks for our loves and for our joys and for the continued courage to be happily surprised. Go in love, go in peace, go in joy.